You're listening to the Southern Gospel News Podcast, the most listened to gospel music podcast in the world, with your hosts, Darien Southerland, Southern Gospel Hall of Famer Arthur Rice, and I'm Daniel Britt from Homecoming Radio. Now sit back and relax as you listen to SGNP.
And welcome once again to Southern Gospel News Podcast. Darien Southerland here with you. Daniel is working with Mr. Gaither today up there at XM Sirius Radio, so I don't believe he's going to jump in. He may or may not. If he does, it'll be in the middle of it, and I'll pick on him for it. But we're going to have a good time, and we're going to do something a little different today. This is not your typical gospel music or contemporary Christian music star. However, her father could be justifiably named one of the godfathers of Christian music and inspirational music, and the legendary Pat Boone. I have a guest on today, Lindy Boone, daughter of Pat Boone, sister of You Light Up My Life, Debbie Boone. And welcome to Southern Gospel News Podcast, Miss Lindy. Thank you for taking your time way out there in California.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, you know what? We don't get to talk in the Southern gospel world. I'll just tell you, since the Hensons moved east, we don't get to talk to a lot of folks from California, on Southern Gospel News Podcast. You may be the first, so congratulations on that.
Well, pioneering is in my background. Daniel Boone is actually one of our downline.
There you go. And your grandfather, if I did my research correctly, was Red Foley. Am I correct?
He did. Absolutely. My mother's dad. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So, I mean, you've got entertainment in your blood, whether you want to be a full-time entertainer or not.
Right.
First off, what's it like growing up the daughter of Pat Boone? I mean, you can't go to an IHOP, you can't go to a 7-Eleven, you can't go to a Save Mart grocery store with your pop without people walking up from all walks of life, all ages, all cultures, all demographics, and approaching your dad. What's it like growing up like that?
Well, I would say it was all positive. We didn't really have any negative impact from that. It was normal when that's the way you grow up, and every time you're out and about, people recognize your father. For a child, that's just normal. And because we lived in Beverly Hills from the time I was 5 years old, there were a lot of people that we knew that went to our school and lived in our neighborhood that had famous families. Yeah. So again, for us, it wasn't that strange. And we got to, meet a lot of wonderful people, and generally the public that really wanted to come up and say hi to my dad. They were so kind and so excited to meet him. It always made us feel good that our dad was so loved.
Your dad's still with us, 90 years of age. How is he doing? How is he? I read in an article you did with People Magazine, you said he's like the Energizer Bunny, but how is he doing?
Yeah, he is doing great. He's healthy. His mind is so sharp. He knows how old he is, but he really just is too busy to pay attention to it. So it doesn't slow him down. And as daughters, I think we worry a little bit that he puts too much on his plate, but he's got his mind, and his mind is so active, and he sees opportunity everywhere. So he just keeps on moving forward. You know what?
You're lucky. You're so lucky to still have your father at 90 and him being in great shape and good health and all that. Lindy, when I was reading your bio, you sang all over the world, Japan with your sisters. You ladies quit in your mid-20s, but you came back later in life and became a writer. What facilitated that? Tell us the story behind that.
Well, it's sort of a surprising story because it wasn't something that I have ever dreamt of doing. I love performing. I've loved singing with my sisters. And then later on, I joined a group and I sang with them for over a decade. And they were three women singing harmonies. I felt so at home with them. But I always was given the songs and given my parts and given my choreography and given the outfits. It was always kind of presented to me, this is your part. And so I wasn't part of the creative end, but I sure loved doing all the traveling and performing. The reason I wrote the song that I wrote a few years ago was because my daughter, for Mother's Day, gave me a gift, and the gift was an experience. This was during COVID, and she was getting very creative. And she said, I went on Airbnb because they're selling experiences right now instead of renting stays at rooms and homes. So she said, I've given you the experience of writing a song with a Nashville musician. And I thought that was so fun of her to think of that and to get that for me as a Mother's Day gift. And then after she left, I was laughing with my husband going, I don't know what I'm going to be able to contribute to this appointment. I better give some thought to this. And so I really did have enough time that I got pensive about it and thoughtful. And in my prayer time, I had a disciplined time of just getting alone and praying and starting my day that way. And one morning, I really did just ask God, can you give me an idea for this song so I contribute something on this Zoom call? And I remembered that I had coined a phrase that nobody really knew about. Really, I don't think I told anybody.
Yeah.
But I made up the word layer because it was during a time of my life when I was going through sorrow, suffering, and my son had had an accident, and I went through a lot during the years that followed. He had a severe brain injury. And so I was keeping a journal, and eventually the journal became a book, or it contributed to a book of my writing about this experience. And during the time my book was coming out, I needed a Twitter account and I needed a handle in my Twitter account. And I thought, Word Layer, I'm just going to use that because in my mind, words had become like building blocks for the future. And I really dwelled on that a lot during Ryan's recovery, speaking, health, wellness, restoration, and getting real specific, just speaking words of life over him. And I thought that's one of the lessons that I wanted to pass on in my book. I didn't use the word layer in my book. I just used it for myself. And when it came time to write a song, I thought that would be a cool title for a song. And so I started to write down what I meant by word layer. And the words came out as lyrics. And I looked down and I thought, that's a chorus. I like that. And then I kept writing a little bit more, and that became a verse and another verse. So when I sat down on the Zoom call with this lovely songwriter and singer in Nashville, she said, Lindy, I don't want to change your words, but I'll write the melody. So on that call, she came up with a beautiful melody. She ended up singing it into her phone with her guitar and sending it to me. And that was the birth of this song. And I just started sharing it with people after that for a couple of years. I would just share it, just one-on-one, saying I wrote a song and I think it speaks to what we're talking about right now. And I'd send it to somebody here or there. So eventually it grew to the point where I really believed the song was touching lives. And I played it for my dad and his record executive. And they both went, what are you doing with this song? And they wanted me to record it, or they wanted somebody to record it. Eventually, I agreed to record it because somebody suggested that my sister sing on it with me. And I thought, oh, okay, if they're with me, then I'll be the voice. I'll be the solo artist on this song.
Nice. You said something earlier in
Yes.
your comments. You said words are important. And when you speak them into existence, they really make an impact. What brought you to that conclusion in life?
Well, certainly I was raised in church, and I'd heard a lot of pastors and ministers and teachers and scripture itself, talking about the power of the tongue. I think as a human being, whether you're raised in church or not, you understand that people can say something to you and it blesses you, it can help you, it can heal you, and it can also do great damage. So I think we all are very aware of that. But during the time that my son lay in a coma and his recovery was a slow one, he still has a TBI, but he's come so far.
Now, for the
And
listeners that don't know your story,
oh, yes.
your son, and correct me if I'm wrong, was working in a job, fell through a ceiling or something like that onto a concrete floor, had a brain injury. Am I correct?
He was going up to the roof of his apartment building to get some sun.
Okay.
It was during his downtime,
Okay.
and he had a lawn chair and he was with his friend, and he stepped across a skylight, but his foot didn't make it across. He stepped on it
Oh,
and he just disappeared through it. It just didn't hold his weight and he fell 3 stories.
so how
So
old
it
was
was
he at this point?
24,
Wow.
24 years old, just setting out in life,
Yes, ma'am.
engaged to be married. It was a devastating moment in time that just divides our lives into before the accident and after the accident. It changed so much, but it also ushered me personally into a period of suffering, grief, unknown. And so when something like that happened, and it happened to my whole family, but I'm just
Yeah.
speaking personally,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
started journaling about it because I needed to process. I had never journaled before, but I wanted to be able to think and process, and it helped me. It just instinctively helped me to write my thoughts, my prayers, the just kind of mark the moments that were happening. And there were so many things I wanted to remember. So journaling was a big thing, and it helped me to shed a lot of the unnecessary things. This happens in a crisis and in a period of emergency. Everything else falls away. Everything on your schedule doesn't matter. And you just stop and you tune in to this emergency. And I just learned that my words had to be thoughtful and intentional to the people I was talking to, but also just to the situation. And so I really majored on that. Having learned a lot through my church experience and scripture that I knew about, I just decided this was very vital.
Lindy, we hear the phrase from pastors and ministers and counselors in the faith world that God gets glory out of every situation. Okay. And you said yourself there was your son before the accident and after the accident. Okay. Through all that trauma, not only that your son felt, but that you felt, what are some things you've been able to learn about your son after the accident that you didn't know before? And I ask you this because it's Mother's Day and the Mother's Day weekend when we're doing this interview, and there are a lot of moms out there, maybe not with the same situation you're going through, but they've got a child that's maybe had a traumatic injury of another aspect or suffering from autism or something. Tell me what you found in your son after this that you didn't see before, if that's okay to ask.
Boy, that's a hard question for me to answer because when I see Ryan now, I see so much the essence of him before, and I couldn't have been more proud
Yeah.
of my son. Um, he always was this light. He always drew people to him. He always loved God and grew in that to the point by the time he was 24, he just felt a call on his life. And he told me in a phone conversation not long before the accident, he said, I don't know what it is, Mom, but I believe God is going to use me in a big way. And I said, and it was just like, of course, I thought, sure, I agree with you on that. And he goes, no, he stopped me, he goes, no, Mom, he's going to use me in a big way. And he said, I feel like King David. He goes, when David was a shepherd, he had the heart of a king. But then when he became a king, he still had the heart of a shepherd. And he said, right now, I'm just a shepherd. I don't have anything. I'm just working. I'm just starting out in my life. But he had this heart of a king. And he said, and when God gives me whatever it is I'm to do, I need to keep the heart of a shepherd. That was his essence.
Wow.
And I still see that essence in him, even though a traumatic brain injury can change a person. He's not exactly like he was before, but I see it in him. And I know he is still that guy who believes God can use him. And I believe God is using him. One of the things that I've really been blessed by is, at first it was a real negative. Ryan's short-term memory is pretty non-existent. So he could eat a meal and forget that he's eaten, or he could see a movie and the minute we're in the car, he doesn't remember what we saw. And that, of course, that isn't what you want for your child. But because of all the time that has passed and all the ways his friends and everybody's moved on with getting married and having kids and everything, that could be sad for him. But for him, he's just in the moment at all times. And in the moment, he is satisfied and he feels blessed, and he doesn't exude sadness, grief, or loss. He doesn't feel the loss. He doesn't fear the future. And so as a mom, that has been a comfort to me, that I can go on a trip and I know that when I get back, he's not going to know if I was gone. He's going to think I was just in the other room. And so I'm comforted, and I even feel like I want to be more like Ryan, in that I want to stay present to the moment and be content right now, and leave behind any sadness or regret, and not worry so much about what tomorrow's going to bring.
You know what, Lindy? I know we've just met and we've just been talking for 10 minutes here, but you've blessed me right there with that paragraph, because so many of us, we drag things. I mean, we drag things from the past, and what you're telling me about Ryan is just, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I don't know how to put it into words, and it's beautiful, and it's an awesome story.
Well, thank you. You know, I have a beautiful picture of my other son, Tyler. He's a big guy, and he's looking down at his little baby. I'm finally a grandmother, and he's looking down at this little baby, maybe about 3 months old, who's just smiling back at his father. And I have this wonderful just image of, that's how God is with us. He's so much bigger. We can't even understand. We don't speak the same language, really. This little infant can't speak with words, but there is this gaze happening between the father and the son, the child and the creator of the child. And they're just delighting in each other. And I just love that image, because I think, oh my goodness, that's how it is with us and with God. We just need to spend time delighting in each other. And Ryan can't do a whole lot more than that little baby in comparison to this big man looking down at him.
Yeah.
But that big man looking down at him is so pleased and so delighted at just the gaze. And they could gaze at each other for hours and get lost in each other's eyes.
Beautiful.
And Ryan is such a light and such an essence that you feel him. And so I just have learned a lot about how we don't have to do things to please God. It's not what we do, it's not what we have.
Lindy, it's natural. The question I'm going to ask you, it's a natural reaction. But how did you deal with being mad at God that this incident happened?
I will honestly answer you the way I answered Larry King, because we were on Larry King Live about 5 times after this accident. He invited my dad on and myself. And Larry asked me that, and he goes, do you ever say, why me? And I just said to him, no, that doesn't occur to me, because if you live in this world, you see that bad things happen all over the place, and they don't just happen to bad people, they happen to good people. And so my question was never why. I never got mad. I was curious. I was astonished. Of course, I would think, gosh, Ryan had so much to offer. And so I was curious why this would happen, but it was more of an invitation to trust God and to learn from the situation and I just wanted to be close to God, and he was my hope. I wasn't mad. So that might not be the way everybody reacts, but I thought he is my lifeline. So I just needed to stay close and tune in, and I knew I needed to be listening.
Awesome. Awesome. Word Layers, the song Lindy is putting out, folks. Lindy Boone has already put out. Lindy's Pat Boone's daughter, if you hadn't figured that out yet. She, the name tells it all. And she's telling her story today. Lindy, you spoke about words. Did you think about this when you wrote the song? In society today, it's even in I'm not going to get into no political discussion. I'm just going to use it as an analogy. We're not voting a lot of times what we like. We're voting against what we don't like more than anything else. But this song, Word Layer, can be applied to so many things in life. And that's what I think is beautiful about it, that it has so many different applications in people's lives. Do you see it that way, or is that just Darren from the outside thinking it?
No, I definitely see it that way. When I coined the phrase word layer, it was coming out of my life during the, recovery process, the scary times, and the way I was choosing my words during that time. But when I wrote the song, as it developed, it applies definitely universally to just the power of our words in general. And so in the bridge of it, I wrote, stone by stone and brick by brick, we lay our words to heal the sick, heal the body, heal the mind, and heal the soul. But they can work the other way, so please be careful what you say. Instead of walls, build hospitals. We need each other. So that just, to me, is speaking to our time. We can be unifiers, or we can grow further division. And we have so much division that I think it's more important than ever to not just speak off the fly. Consider your words, consider who you're speaking to, and are you wanting to build people up, or you want to be part of the tearing down process? And I'm imploring people to be kind and to build people up.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're going to play that song at the end of this podcast. But before we go, I have to ask you one question that I bet you've never been asked before. Are you ready for this? It's a fun question, it's a fun question, by the way. Okay?
Okay.
You said you grew up in Beverly Hills, correct?
Yes.
So you lived the Beverly Hills 90210 life before the TV show Mr. Spelling developed ever came out. How true to life is that show? And for our listeners out there, how true to life is the 90210 TV show?
I grew up in the 90210, but I lived at Pat Boone's house. So I wouldn't know about that kind of life. I was raised by Pat and Shirley Boone, and they did their best to create a different sort of environment. We went to an all-girls school, private school, so we didn't go to the public school.
Gotcha.
And honestly, to be honest with you, I don't think I ever watched that show, but I think it is kind of funny that I grew up in the 90210 and now I live in Coto de Caza, where it's the Real Housewives of Orange County started. So I've been in both of those, and I don't feel like I necessarily belong on either one of those programs, but I end up living nearby, adjacent.
That is funny. Let me ask you this about your dad, if you don't mind. How was he able, in the world he was in, to maintain such strong integrity and a strong faith life? because he was facing demons and facing things that us over here in Atlanta, where I'm at, or the Southeast, we can't dream of. I mean, he was seeing things that we never saw. How was he able to do that?
Well, I think he would be the first to say he didn't do it perfectly.
Yeah.
But he definitely, as we all do, we go through our lives and we are raised a certain way with convictions and values and things you decide to either adhere to or turn from. But he's always adhered to his faith. But just different experiences in life teach you, okay, I veered off the path a little bit. That wasn't good. I'm going to get back on. And I think just life experience teaches you as well as the way you're raised. And he was definitely raised by godly people in a wonderful environment of faith and church. And he's still very much the same guy.
Nice.
So,
nice.
And he's tried to instill that in his family as well.
Nice. Well, your family has a legacy, and this song is part of the legacy. Lindy, thank you for taking a few moments out of your day to sit in with us at Southern Gospel News Podcast and sharing your memories and about your son and about your song and about yourself and your dad and your grandpa. It's been great. Thank you so much.
This has been a joy for me. Hey.
Well, look who has showed up. Mr. Boone, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing great. I've been sitting here wiping tears of pride, joy, listening to you guys and Lindy. And I didn't know that my assistant here could actually punch me into the program. But I'm continually taken with Lindy's talk about word layer. I've said this to her, that she is the embodiment of what that song teaches. She is not one ever to criticize. She is one to encourage, try to see past people's faults and to what they have to offer that may be good. And I've always admired that in her. And it takes me back to one moment in our lives when the girls, 4 daughters, and Lindy was number 2, and the various girls were talking about their problems, worrying about them. And, we're trying to, as a family, what can we do? And Lindy started crying. And we said, not crying, but tearing up. What's the matter, Lindy? She says, I don't have any problems.
I felt left out.
Left out because as far as she was concerned, she didn't have problems that she wanted to get rid of. And that answer she gave Larry King when he said, will it affect your faith if Ryan doesn't recover the way you're hoping and praying he would? She said, we all have problems in this world. And no, if the Lord were to take Ryan, we would know where he is and it will be together. And we could accept that. Of course, we'd be sad. But I have been amazed at the calm and the intellect. Lindy will probably try to deny this, but she has always been the one of the 4 daughters to give the right answers when people question faith. And what could be a better alternative than either condemnation or despair or whatever other emotions you might have. She looks to the Lord, and yet she's a normal person. Believe it or not. She's mama, a grandmama now. She's finally got her own grandson. She was the last of the 4 daughters for God to give her a grandson. And now she's got a beautiful grandson. And that you can see the smile on her face.
Yeah.
And she's even writing a song about that. I won't tell you the title, but she's writing another beautiful song about what it means to be a grandparent and how you feel about your grandchild. So I was a strict dad, yes. My kid said he's on the Merv Griffin show once. We sometimes think he's more strict than he needs to be, but he talks to us. We always talk it over, and we know there are reasons for the rules that he makes. And in Merv Griffin trying to get under our skins and get to some kind of, subcurrent, he says, come on now, tell me, don't you feel like you're missing some things? And it was Cherry, I think, who said, yes, trouble. We miss out a lot of trouble. We know that though God, we don't think our daddy needs to be quite as strict as he is. We don't have some of the problems that many of our friends do. In fact, we come home from school and we ask if we can pray together as a family for one of our friends who is in trouble. So, yeah, it was, as I say, I'm imperfect. My daughters can give you many examples, and I can give you many examples. But we were trying. That was the main thing. We were trying to live Christian lives. We were deep into God's Word. We had devotionals at breakfast before the kids went to school. We would sing one of the songs we sang in church together without music. We would just, because our church didn't have music instruments anyway. And so we would have a prayer and a little Bible story or something while we had breakfast with Jesus before they went to school. And it was just a matter of our daily lives. It was not, we didn't make anything of it. We didn't judge anybody else. This was just the way we lived. And church going was a matter of our lives. And we were always receiving God's Word, but we had to mix it in with the realities of an entertainer's life and the fact that we had more than many people did. And yet there were many other kinds of temptations too. But we were trying to live what I called Tennessee lifestyle. My wife would say, what do you mean by that? I said, well, we live as if we live still in Tennessee. We go to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesdays, prayer meetings. We pray. We're not super religious, but it is a practical part of our lives. And we make our decisions not based on what Hollywood thinks is smart and what's popular, but what we think is best for ourselves and our family. So we lived that way, and I was the subject of jokes, many of them. And the kids, I'm sure, were probably asked by their friends, about, isn't your daddy awful strict or whatever? I say yes or no to that. But I didn't care about that. I was just careful about trying to be a good daddy, raise my daughters to be the kind of women they have become, and have made us so proud now today. And now Lindy turns out to be a songwriter and a singer. She always was a singer, but usually Debbie got the most attention as the lead singer. But Lindy was there supporting her as the alto harmony. And now she's the solo performer, and we're discovering what a really good singer she is.
There you go.
Just couldn't be more proud of her.
Mr. Boone, I've got to tell you this story. I had no idea you were going to join us, and thank you for joining us.
I didn't either. This just happened.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm waiting for you to sell us an insurance policy or something on this thing. You look good. I'm used to seeing you on the commercials,
Well, thank you for that.
No problem. I'm going to give you a timeline. You're going to laugh at this. About 1976, I was 7 or 8 years old at that time. And every Sunday morning when we would get up here in Metro Atlanta, there was a TV show on called the Gospel Singing Jubilee. Mm-hmm. And we would watch that, and it came on like at 9, and I knew at the end of that show, it was time to leave to drive to church because our church was about 20 minutes away, so we could be at Sunday school, okay? But this particular Sunday, my grandmother said, after the Gospel Singing Jubilee was over, she says, I don't think I'm going to church today. We're just going to stay home. And I'm like, Granny said we ain't going to church. Something is wrong because we were on drugs. We were drugged to church no matter what day the church was open, okay? If it was a Monday night revival. Here's why we got to stay at home. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
You were appearing with Dr. Schuler on the Hour of Power at the Crystal Cathedral. Yeah. And my grandmother said, I want to see that good-looking man talk about his faith in Jesus. That's what my grandmother said. So when you get to heaven, I'm sure my grandmother's going to come over and shake your hand and say, I enjoyed seeing you on the Crystal Cathedral in the Hour of Power.
Again, that brings tears to my eyes because those things, I appreciate having gold records and making movies and top 10 box office or all those kind of things. It can happen to you as an entertainer. But I knew that God had given me my platform. It was not because I had some special voice. I wasn't Mario Lanza or Frank Sinatra. I could sing. I like to pattern myself after Bing Crosby, but even he called himself lucky. And I knew I was very lucky, but I was more than that. I was blessed, and that I had the responsibility, not just to my own kids, but because I was a teen idol, I accepted the responsibility of influence on the lives of teenagers. So I wrote, while I was still in college, a book called Twixt 12 and 20. I was by a secular publisher, wanted me to write a book of good advice, practical advice for teens. So I chose the title Twixt 12 and 20. They didn't like that title, but I was an English major. I liked the alliteration, Twixt 12 and 20. And they said, what does it mean anyway? I said, well, what's between 12 and 20? Oh, teens. Yeah. And so we called the book Twixt 12 and 20, and it became the number one nonfiction bestseller for 2 years, sometimes alternating with The Power of Positive Thinking, Norman Vincent Peale, and Kids Say the Darndest Things by Art Linkletter. But that book of advice for teens, and it became such a big bestseller, really convinced me that God had given me this platform so that I could use it for his purposes. I would get blessed in the process, of course, but I wanted, above all, for my kids, my daughters. I once sang a song, when you're the father of boys, you worry. When you're the father of girls, you do more than that, you pray. And we had 4 daughters to raise in the entertainment environment. And we did that, Shirley and I. And we've always been so proud of the way they have turned out and the way they've raised their families, and they married Christian guys. And so we were blessed in these ways, which I wanted to share even with my fellow performers, which got me kidded by a lot of them along the way. Dean Martin, several times in his shows, it came back to me. He'd bring me up. He said, oh, Pat Boone, he's so religious. I shook hands with that boy the other day. My whole right side sobered up. And people would laugh, and I would repeat it in my own shows. But I'm just saying all of this to say that Lindy has perpetuated that kind of environment in her house and her family, and my 4 daughters have done their best to do the same. And that platform that we were given was given for a purpose, and we've just tried to stay true to it. But of course, we all stumble and trip, and I'm first to say, hey, man, I've made some bad mistakes. Once I used to spank Debbie because as a little baby, was obstinate that she would mess up in her diaper instead of getting on the toilet. And so I thought, well, I'm going to spank her. Well, I didn't have to do that because she would have outgrown that pretty quickly. But I was trying my best to teach her, but I went overboard. I shouldn't have spanked her for that. And so anyway, though, I've made plenty of worse mistakes than that. Lindy can tell you, but she won't.
We've all made them, and thanks for the grace and mercy of our Heavenly Father that we can make them through them. We made them today, no doubt. No doubt we made them today. Lindy, again, thank you for sharing with us. Mr. Boone, I could ask you questions for an hour, but I know you don't have an hour, but thank you for making this cameo appearance on with us, and I appreciate it, and appreciate your ministry and your career, your entertainment career. You could have gone a lot of different ways, but it's evident talking to your daughter that you went the right way, and you're extremely proud of your kids.
Thanks for giving me the chance to brag on my girl.
Yeah, she's doing good. Lindy, let's do this for the listeners. Let's play the song. You ready? You want to introduce it real quick, Lindy?
This is a song from my heart to you guys. It's called Word Layer. I hope you like it.
There we go.
When your happy turns to tears and you're broken by your fears, it's so tempting to declare that all is lost. You can speak into creation and build a new foundation, laying word upon the cross. Your words have superpowers. They can sweeten, they can sour. And you're blessed to have a choice of what they're